home, Nathan was all over his dad, pestering him to marry Blessing. He kept on calling her mommy, and when Femi asked why he called her that, Nathan said, "She's my mom. I've always seen her in my dreams." Femi found this odd and said to his son, "I like her and I want to date her, but I need to see if she's a good woman and if she's going to be a good mother for you. Remember, your mom took most of my money and left us for someone else. I don't want that to happen to me or you again. So please pretend that I'm not a rich man and that I'm just an employee at my company. Do we have a deal, Nathan?" Nathan agreed. "Okay, Dad, but on one condition, that you must marry her." Blessing used the money she received from that one-night stand 5 years ago to set up a small pastry shop where she worked day and night. She loved baking cookies and bread and just had 2 staff members helping her to bake and sell her goods. One day, she received a call from Femi and Nathan asking her to go on a date with him. She agreed. Then they came to pick her up. They all went out and had a good time over lunch. Nathan was so happy to see Blessing, and Femi's heart warmed at the sight of her. Eventually, Femi invited Blessing over to his house the next day. He picked her up and took her to his small house just behind the big mansion, and then he said to her, "I work for my boss and this is his mansion." But Blessing didn't care. She just loved spending time with Femi and Nathan, especially Nathan, who made her feel like a mom. One day, when they visited Blessing at home, Blessing gave Nathan a big cup of chocolates. He ate it excitedly and spilled some on his shirt. Blessing helped him out of his shirt and gave him her smallest shirt to wear until his shirt was washed and dried. As Nathan removed his shirt, Blessing noticed a black birthmark on his chest, exactly like the one she has on her chest and exactly like the one the baby she had 5 years ago also had. Could this be her son? She thought. And Nathan is the same age as my son would be today, and he has the exact birthmark as me and my son? She thought, could this be my son? After cleaning and drying his shirt, she put it back on for him, and Nathan hugged her lovingly, saying, "Thank you, Mommy." She was so touched to the point of tears. Femi wondered why she loved Nathan so much, and it also shocked her how much she loved him like her own. Later that night, she inquired lightly from Femi about Nathan's mom, and Femi explained that his girlfriend Grace, Nathan's mom, had abandoned them when Nathan was just a few months old. Blessing wondered, how could a mother be so wicked to leave this cute, loving boy? Blessing couldn't shake the feeling that Nathan might be her son. The semblance and the birthmark was too uncanny to ignore. She decided to do some discreet investigation to find out some more about Nathan's past. One evening, Blessing invited Femi and Nathan over for dinner. Blessing and Femi chatted in the other side of the living room, and Blessing gently probed, "Femi, can you tell me more about Nathan's early days? When did Grace leave and how did you cope with everything?" Femi looked at her with a cloud of painful memories around his eyes. "Grace left when Nathan was just a few months old," he said. "She said she wasn't ready to be a mother and wanted a different life of hers. And then she took most of my money. But I tried to do everything to take care of my son. But today, we are a team and I can't live without him." Blessing's heart ached for both Femi and Nathan. She felt a growing resolve to uncover the truth. One night after Nathan and Femi had left her place, she decided to confide in her grandmother. So the next day, she went straight to her grandmother's place hoping to get some advice. When she got to her grandmother's place, she called her grandmother by her name and began hesitantly. "Grandma Anna, I need to tell you something. I think Nathan, Femi's son, might be my son." Her grandmother looked at Blessing, shocked, but listened patiently as Blessing recounted everything. Blessing continued, "Grandma, The birthmark, the timeline, his age, and the growing bond I feel towards Nathan. I think he's my son. The birthmark that he has is the same exact one that I have just right under my chest. I think he's my son, she said impatiently. What should I do, Grandma? Blessing asked, her voice trembling. Then her grandmother said firmly, you need to find out for sure if what you are saying is true. A DNA test will give you all the answer you need. But how are you going to carry out this test? Then Blessing thought she needed to find a way to see if truly Nathan was her son. The next day, she called Femi and told Femi that they should spend time in the park, that they should have some fun family activities. And Femi agreed. Nathan was full of joy and so excited that he was going to spend time with Blessing again. So they took off and went to the park. But Blessing had a comb in her bag. During their time at the park, while they were enjoying themselves, Blessing pretended to comb Nathan's hair, and as she combed his hair gently, she ensured that some strand of hair stuck into the comb, and then she kept the comb back into her bag. Later that day, she sent the hair along with a sample of her own hair to a private lab for testing. The waiting period was agonizing. Blessing continued to spend time with Femi and Nathan, her heart growing more attached to this boy, who she believed could be her son. Finally, the result arrived. She opened the envelope with hands trembling and her heart in her mouth, and then she read out the words, 99.9% match? Blessing was in shock. She couldn't believe it. She was surprised. She didn't know if she could cry, if she would shout. She didn't know. Her breath was caught in her throat. Nathan was her son. How come? She couldn't believe it. She was so overwhelmed with emotion. She didn't know how she was going to tell Femi the truth. And then she rushed over grandmother's place and showed her grandmother the result. Her grandmother was overexcited with joy and happy for Blessing. Then she sat Blessing and asked, how are you going to tell Femi that Nathan is your son? And Blessing thought, I will find a way to tell him. He's my son. Life has finally blessed me eventually. A week passed. After she has regained her confidence, she invited Femi and Nathan to her place, fed them well, and ensured Nathan had gone to sleep. Then she sat Femi in the parlor, telling him that she had something very important to tell him. And then she began, Femi, I have something very important I need to tell you, Blessing said, her voice shaking. Then she handed him the DNA results. Femi read them, his eyes widened in shock, and he said to her, this is a DNA result, isn't it? Blessing nodded her head. What is my son's name doing on this paper and your name? And it says 99.9% match. What is the meaning of this? And then Blessing began with tears rolling down her eyes. Femi was silent for a long moment, trying to process what was going on. And then Blessing explained, I lost my baby 5 years ago. I was told in the hospital when I woke up from a deep sleep that my son had died, but it turned out that they took him away from me. When I asked to see his body, they said they had buried it, and I couldn't fight because I was too weak, and then I left. But I knew deep down that something was fishy, but I didn't know how to prove them wrong. Femi continued looking at her and then asked, if you claim that this is your son, where is the father of your son? Then she said, do not judge me. I'm about to tell you another story. 5 years ago, I listened to my friends and went to a particular bar where rich men frequented. I let my friend coerce me into taking just a little sip of alcohol. I took it and I became very drunk. And then, in my drunken state, I went to the bathroom. I didn't know I entered the wrong bathroom, and a young handsome man helped me out And before I knew what was happening, I was in his bed, and then the next morning I woke up, I had slept with him. When I woke up in the morning, I saw an envelope of money, a note, and a ring that had letter D on it. I tried everything I could to find this man, but I could not find him. Some weeks later, I became pregnant and my father threw me out, but my grandmother took me in. But when I went to the hospital to give birth, I was told my baby died, and that's everything. She looked up into Femi's eyes. Femi was in utter shock. His mouth open, for he was the man she just described. And then Blessing said, "Femi, what is the problem? Why are you looking at me so shocked?" And Femi gathered himself back together. Then he said, "Blessing, I am that man who met you in the bathroom. I am that man who you met when you were drunk. I was also drunk. But my hotel was in the same venue where the bar was. And I took you to my room. One thing led to another, and here we are today. Before I left, I knew you were a good girl. I thought you were just trying to go into prostitution for the first time. That's why I left you a note, some bundle of money to help you, and I left that diamond stored in case I see you in future again. And now, life has brought us both together. So, Nathan is your son and also my son. That means you are his mother." Blessing was so happy to finally meet the man who is the father of her child, a man who she had fallen in love with unknown to her. And then both of them replied immediately, "Then how is Grace the mother of Nathan?"